Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today's concept is about arrays. I'm Muhammad Mushtaq and let me explain how this concept is used and what is the advantage of using arrays in a program. So before discussing arrays, you must understand what is a variable. What is a variable? So variable basically is a certain memory location which can only store a single value. The value can be either a number or any character or any symbol or whatever type of variable you declare. You can only store that number or that character in that variable, but it can only store a single value at any time. Okay, if I again write, so now it will replace the first one. Now the new value is 6, but the variable can hold only a single value. We can also assign the value using this arrow. In pseudocode we use this arrow most of the time, but even if you write like x equals 6, that is the same, that has the same meaning. That means this 6 is being assigned to x. Okay, but we can't, you have to remember another thing, that we can't write it like this one, because now we can't, because the programming always use a rule from right to left. That means the value on the right is assigned to the left side, so this one is wrong, so this one is the correct. Because now 6 is being assigned to x. Now what is an array? Basically, as you saw, variable can only store a single value at a time, but the array can store multiple values, but it also uses a single name. Let's say in this example it is using a single name mylist, but mylist can hold many values at one time, while the variable can hold only single value. Whenever a new value comes, previously it had the value 5, but when I stored 6, so that 5 was replaced with 6. Okay, because it can only store a single value. Okay, but sometimes in programming we need those previous values, okay, for any searching purpose or for sorting or anything, but we somehow need the previous values. For that purpose we use array, so that it can retain all the previous values which were entered. Okay, for example, user is entering these values 5, 9, I'm just entering random values 30, 40, 80, 2. Okay, so now it depends on the size of the array. Let's say I have created an array mylist. It can store 10 different values, but you can extend these values as well. Okay, so you can either start it from 0 to 9. Of course, I'm starting it from 0 to 9. That means it can store 10 values, but you can also start it from 1. So you can have the last value as 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So this array can store 10 values. Okay, so all these values, for example, the user enters 5, that will be stored in the first location. If the user enters 9, it will be stored in the second location, and in the same way the user will keep on entering the values and the program will save it. If we have other values, yes, we can store it here. So this array can hold 10 values. So if you want to access any value from the array, you have to use its index. This is basically the index. Okay, but while using the loop, we also call it counter as well, and mostly we name it index. Okay, so if you want to access any specific value, let's say I want to print the 5th value from the array, which is 40. So I will write like my list because this is the name of the array, and in bracket I will write its index. That means now we want this value to be printed, so I can write print, or you can use the word output as well. So this will display the value at the 5th location of array, so it will display 40. Okay, if you want to access any other value, like you want to see any value like 20, so that is on the 3rd position. Okay, so again you will use the name of the array with its index, so this time you will output like 3. So now this time the value 20 will be displayed. Okay, this is how we can access the individual elements. Now let's see how we can output all the values in the arrays. Okay, so we have to use a loop. Let me use a loop now, because one of the method is that we can output the individual values, like output my list 1, and then again you write output my list 2, second value will be output. And in the same way you can write this statement 10 times, but this is not a professional approach, though you can output all the values given in the array. So for that purpose, to make your program more efficient, the code with the smaller code, we can use a loop. So how we can use a loop? I'm using a for loop. For sees my counter 1 2, number of elements are 10. Okay, so now if I write output my list, so what should I write here now? Okay, so here I can write the name of this counter, because every time the loop runs, the loop starts from 1 and ends at 10. So first time in the first cycle of the loop, this will output my list 1. So the first value will be output. So when the loop runs for the second cycle, so the C becomes 2 every time. Okay, and now this time the output value will be my list 2, so that will be 9. So in the same way, this loop will run for 10 times, and it will display all the values stored in the arrays. So this was only possible with the arrays whenever you need the previous values which were input. So this was how you can output the values, and in the same way you can input the values in the array. For example, you want to change these values, these 10 values. So now we will write the input statement, because now we want to enter the data in array. So we can write first I will write output just to ask the user enter value. Okay, and then I will say input my list C. That's it. So when the loop will run first time, it will ask you enter the value, and whenever you enter any value, that will be stored on my list 1. Okay, so whatever, let's say this time user enters 20 in the first place, that will be stored in the first position, my list 1. Okay, because this is being changed every time whenever the loop goes to the next value. So C will keep on changing until the 10th value is entered. So this way you can enter the data in arrays. Thank you so much.